Tifany, Desi, Herawati. Okay, thank you so much for the moderator because she gave me a time for present my presentation today. Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, in this occasion, my name is Tifany Desi Herawati. I am from PBI 4B, and I would like to explain you about my discussion today. And the title for my material today is about use of the language laboratory in the communicative methodology. Okay, before I'm going to explain you more about use of language laboratory in the communicative methodology, do you know what is language laboratory, ladies and gentlemen?
No.
Okay. Yeah. If all of you don't know what is the definition of language laboratory, I will give you the definition of language laboratory. Yeah, language laboratory is an audio or audio visual that installation used as an aid in modern language teaching. Yeah, and in this case, the other definition of language laboratory is the classroom or the place that the student use device to practice or to speak and to listen about the language. And when we studied in senior high school or in junior high school, especially in my school, I have studied in language laboratory. And when we studied in senior high school, we have language laboratory. And when we have studied in senior high school, the language laboratory isn't work because they have some problem. The teacher do not know how to make the language laboratory is more useful for like the other method. Okay. And here I will explain you more about the language laboratory, especially if we use in a communicative methodology. Okay guys, communicative language teaching is a method which focus on teaching grammatical structure, and in language communicative teaching, the students will practice how to use English or how to use language in their learning and activities process. And yeah, of course, if you want to make a methodology or communicative methodology, we have the requirements need to be fulfilled for the language laboratory. And like in this case, we have the goal, the first requirements for the language laboratory is the goal should be directed. Yeah, the goal or the purpose is the main requirements that we should have. Why? Because it is impossible if you want to make some methodology, if you want to do some methodology, and we do not know how to make the methodology work, so we need to make clear our goal first. And the next is the design should be attempted. And the third is the instructional strategies should be in concert. Why? Yeah, in the language laboratory, the teacher will teach the student in language laboratory. I give you an example. It's impossible when the teacher teach the junior high school when the teacher teach the junior high school and the teacher use the strategy from the senior high school. It is impossible. Yeah, because we know that they have different levels. So the strategy or the instructional strategy in language laboratory is not work because the teacher do not have a same level. They teach the junior high school, but fully. So it is not depend on the language laboratory, but it is also depend on the teacher and the students. Like in this case, the first is the success of language teaching is depend on the teacher. Yeah, the teacher should be considered, and the teacher should have a effective lesson to make the students more understand about the strategies in the language laboratory. And then the curriculum. Yeah. In language laboratory too, we have the curriculum. Like what is the basic way to make the students, what is the main point in the language laboratory for the students. So they need to know, both of them, the students and the teacher, need to know what is the curriculum of their lesson. And the next is the material. It is like the curriculum. You need to know what is the material based on the curriculum of your strategy. And then the students' access. This is the important point. Why I said that this is the important point? It is possible if the language laboratory only have the teacher, the curriculum, the material, but the teacher is not give more attention, is not access, doesn't access, because the students do not get attention about the strategy. So that's impossible for the language laboratory if they only have the teacher, the curriculum, the material, but they didn't have the students' access. So the students' access need to make the success of language teaching is more effectively. And then language laboratory as an instructional media. The first is, like I told you before, one of the components in the instructional system is media. And the language laboratory is the way or the strategy to reaching the goal to make the students more creative and to make the teacher more creative about the strategy. And then, yeah, of course, quiz and wisdom for the teacher. The teacher should respect the material or the strategy about the language laboratory in the classroom. The first is use the language library as a media, and the next is the goal. You should consider the goal, and the next is create a design. With and wisdom for the teacher in this slide, it seems like the requirements of the language laboratory. So you have to consider the wisdom for the teacher, and you have to consider the requirements for the teacher and the students. And yeah, of course, if we want to study in use a language laboratory in a communicative methodology, we have some strategies in using the language laboratory. The first is like English skills, listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And in listening, this is the introduction of listening section. If the teacher and the student want to use these strategies, and it can be description, narration, announcement, and manual. So, what is the way? How are the way to use language laboratory in a listening strategies? Yeah, you can read in this slide, and after that, the teacher can give instruction. After the students give the time or the strategy, the teacher will give the instruction. Like in this case, the teacher read the instruction first. Read the instruction first before they are going to do the listening strategies, and after that, the students will listen to the radio tap or like use earphone talk for the instructional, for the make it clear all of the description, narration, announcement, and etc. Text. And the example question. Now, the example of this listening question. After the teacher give the instruction how to do the listening strategy, and after the teacher give tag, radio tag, and etc., the teacher will give the questions like in this case. What are the students talking about? How many times are they going to read, to need, and what does the second speaker say about cooking? And all of these questions include in that radio tag, in that description text, or that manual instructional media. So this is the case of, or this is the example of listening strategies. And after that, this is a strategy in using the language laboratory in reading. It seems like the listening, you only make, this is the interaction for the teacher and the students. The first is read the instruction, listen to the instruction, ask the question, and you can read this section. And after the fourth point, and then strategy in using language laboratory in the speaking. And this is the example of speaking to. This is we call that the best, the below, or the class, or the time, the topic for the speaking task. And in the speaking, you can use, you can improve your speaking too in the language laboratory because the students, because the teacher give more facilities about the language laboratory. In this slide, strategies in writing, and this is the example of writing. Okay. After talking a lot about my explanation about the use of methodology, use of language laboratory in a communicative methodology, I will come up with my own conclusion. Like I told you before, language laboratory is a place or is a classroom that where the students is get the information about the language practice, and this is language laboratory is audio and or audio visual to help the students, to help the teacher to reach their goal in a process, in a learning and teaching process. So there are 4 skills that students should master. The first is listening, speaking, writing, and reading. So the instructional media, or I call that the language laboratory, is a good way to improve the student skill, and this is the best way to make the students and the teacher more creative and more effectively in process and teaching and learning process. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any question, ask me later, and see you